Welcome guys, welcome back to my channel once again. I hope you have a great day. Today we're gonna be talking about the Ukraine. Now, some of you might be thinking, why are you doing this? Well, I was thinking yesterday my video on the situation in Kazakhstan was pretty well received. And I enjoyed doing it actually, and that's what I've always wanted to do, and I'm trying to do it now, sort of a journalistic type of thing. Tell me if you like it. Today I'm going to be talking about the Crimean situation and basically the situation in Ukraine. What's happening, why is it happening, and all that. Now, the way things are going, the reason why, first of all, the reason why the war started in the first place was for this. Now, what is this? This is called the port of Sevastopol, which is a warm water port which is located in Sevastopol, which is a city in Ukraine, which is where the navy, the Russian navy is stationed, and that's where it was always stationed during Soviet times. Now, when the Soviet Union collapsed, that port, as you all know, became part of Ukraine, but Russia could never give that up. So what happened was the Ukrainian government leased it to the Russians. But it was still Ukrainian, and they needed the sport. And so when 2014 everything happened with the annexation of Crimea, the port eventually ended up falling on the Russian hands, officially, if you will. But that was very important to the Russian government. This port in particular. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, why are things heating up once again in Russia? You see a lot of troops being moved to the border with Donbass and all those regions that have fallen basically in war zones, lately, where people still live, and I think there's been a ceasefire, but there hasn't been like major conflict there yet, but Putin is, putting a lot of pressure onto the Ukrainians. Why is that? Some people might ask. Two reasons. Number one, no, thank you. This is basically what showcases the reason why there's so much tension within Ukraine because of this one particular map. Now, you might be asking, why is it significant? Because, it shows basically, Crimea is ethnically Russian, majority. So that's why there was a referendum, and some people might have questioned was it democratic? Was it even real? Was it just a fake vote? No, it was real, and it was, in my opinion, take this as you will, completely legitimate, because most people who lived in Crimea were Russian. They spoke Russian. They thought of themselves as Russian. And so it was just everybody benefited from this, from Crimea going to back to Russia. Now, the reason why Ukraine is so divided is because of this map. Half of Ukraine consider themselves Ukrainian, and they speak mostly Ukrainian. Here, the upper half, the western half, and basically the eastern half speaks or considers themselves mostly Russian. And you can see when there's an election, the previous election in 2014, that one of the candidates was pro NATO and pro Western, and the other was more pro Russia and pro Eastern. That was how this map was divided. The election, half of it, exactly, pretty much. This half, the red half, voted for the Western guy. The Eastern half voted for the Eastern guy. Now, why is Russia being so belligerent and so aggressive towards the Ukrainians? So much, and towards the West. Why are they so putting hundreds of thousands of people on the border? Threatening war. It's because of this. Now, what is this? You might have been thinking. This is NATO. This is NATO 1949, 52, 55, and as it's expanded over time in Europe. Now, in 1990, West Germany got reunited with the East, so it became part of Germany once again. In 1999, there was the first expansion of NATO under Bill Clinton, which included Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary. Now, the reason why this is significant, and we're going to talk about the 2004 expansion and so on and so forth, is because the Americans promised the Soviet Union that if the Warsaw Pact dissolved, because that's where things were going, they wouldn't expand NATO. And slowly but surely, they reneged on their promise because the Soviet Union didn't have any more leverage to enforce this promise that wasn't even made on paper. It was a promise up in the air. And so 1999, first expansion of NATO. 2004, the second expansion. This was significant because this one, the Baltic states that have a direct border with Russia here on the eastern border, and here in Kaliningrad, they have a direct border with Russia, which is significant because they're now bordering Russia. They're so close to St. Petersburg, which is right about here. And then 2009, you have the enlargement of NATO. What I'm getting at is the following: in 2014. There was a conference in Romania. I hope I'm not mistaken. Was it 2014 or I might be mistaken on the date? But there was a conference in Romania where basically the West told the next expansion of NATO should include Georgia and Ukraine. Which, if people know what Georgia and Ukraine are, it's just insane because Ukraine is this big blob here, and Georgia is this. And so one of the reasons why Russia is so antagonistic, or at least so pushing so much back against the West, putting hundreds of thousands of troops on the Ukrainian border, is they don't want them to join NATO. Because if Ukraine joins NATO, you have, America could be able to put missiles and tanks on the Ukrainian border, right alongside the Russian border, which is directly on their doorstep. And so, if you're wondering, by the way, well, why aren't they more, why aren't they more concerned about putting troops on the border in the Baltic states? Well, that is concerning. What really frightens the Russians, if they put troops on the Ukrainian border right alongside here, they will be able, if there's a war eventually, they will be able to rush and they will be able to cut off Russia from the Caucasus, where there's a lot of oil, a lot of natural resources that come up, a lot of water that comes from this area right here. And so that's why the Russia is so antagonistic and so vehement in their opposition from Ukraine joining NATO, which is sort of a catch-22 because before Russia went all out and became this, started annexing Crimea and started, putting troops on the border with Ukraine, the Ukrainian people were not in favor of joining NATO. They were not. But as the years progressed and they became afraid of Russian aggression, basically the desire for joining NATO gained a majority in Ukraine, which is unprecedented, and I don't know where this is going. Now, this crisis that's been happening in Ukraine, I don't know where it's going. I don't know how it's going to end up. Is the country going to be divided in two between East and West, as I showed you this map, where there'll be a insider referendum within the country, where basically the East goes with Russia, the West goes with Western Ukraine, and becomes its own new country, Western Ukraine, which I doubt is going to happen because for that to happen, Ukraine will never accept to lose so much resources and so much populace, it will be a disaster if you're a politician in Ukraine and you advocate for this. But then, the East, the Russians don't want Ukraine to join NATO. The West want Ukraine to join NATO. And so, I don't know where this is gonna go. In my opinion, if you're Ukrainian, what's the best thing for Ukraine, in my opinion? Because they're between a rock and a hard place right now. They're basically between the West, which is very inviting, and the East, which is on their doorstep with Russia. So, in my opinion, the best for Ukrainians, and I'm not Ukrainian, I don't, tell me in the comments if you watch this video, what do you think is the best for your country? But I think the best overall would be for them to stay neutral. Somehow, some way, to find a way to promise both sides that they're not going to join Russia, or some way or another, but they're not going to join the NATO as well. So they're going to be basically a buffer between the West and the East. That would be, in my opinion, what's the best for the country. Now, granted, I'm looking at this from so far away, so if you have another perspective, tell me in the comments. Tell me if you want me to do more of these types of videos, because they're really enjoyable to me. And I'll see you guys next time. Tell me if you learned anything, if you want me to. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for listening. See you guys.